Today we're having a Challengers threesome with Zendaya, Mike, and Josh on different covers, getting religious with Interview Magazine and Rihanna, and revving our engines with Vogue Italia. My name is Marco, welcome to the Model Gene, and if you're ready to dissect this month's covers, hit that like button and let's get started on May's Battle of the Covers. Starting off with Vogue US, we have Zendaya shot by Annie Leibovitz, easily one of the best covers from Annie in a long time. The silhouette is strong, the color grading is allowing the skin to look like skin and the plants to look like plants, which is often not the case with her. The rest of the editorial images take advantage of Zendaya's talents as a dancer, which I'm sure delighted Annie given that her mother was a dancer, and some of my favorite work in her career are the photographs of Mikhail Baryshnikov and the White Oak Dance Project. Those photos are so much more honest than the work in her current Photoshop era, so any steps taken in that direction I welcome wholeheartedly. British Vogue also has Zendaya on the cover, shot by Carlijn, and I have to say this. If Annie Leibovitz is taking a better cover image than you with the same subject in the year of our Lord 2024, it is time to look inward. This wig is Boo Boo the Fool, the styling is sloppy garbage throughout the editorial, and I don't understand the goal with using these color gels. The one positive note I can give about the cover is that the pose could have worked from the neck down, but the shadow created by the track jacket is creating this dark line that shrinks her neck and throws off the image. They wanted to go in a sporty tennis direction in reference to Zendaya's new film Challengers, but this looks like she is going to take her dog out for a poo. If they fixed the wig and put her in one of these looks that she wore during her Challengers press tour, it could have been a grand slam. Vogue Australia is Zendaya's third Vogue cover this month, and although my initial reaction was very negative to the image, I realized it had a lot to do with the color grading. There is quite a lot of green and cyan in the highlights, making her skin look a bit sickly, but when I warm her skin up, it looks much more vibrant and romantic. Let me know in the comments which you prefer. Even with Irina Shayk as the model, I really like this Vogue Italia cover. The story centers around Ferrari's Formula One team, which is a real symbol of pride for the country. This reminds me of Helmut Newton's early work, the combination of sex appeal and danger. I definitely respond to this bolder type of fashion imagery from Vogue Italia. One real flop of the story is this image with drivers Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. The chemistry between these three subjects is non-existent. What they should have done is had Irina as the driver and the boys playing her pit crew team on either side of her. Vogue France has two covers of Celine Dion, and the Risky Business cover is better. This cover says nothing, there's no energy, I guess it's supposed to be a fashion moment with this backwards giant coat, but the image is boring. We are lacking fashion in this cover, but at least it shows off her vibrancy and the eye is given the opportunity to travel. There was a lot of speculation about Celine's health condition after her announcement that she suffers from a rare autoimmune neurological disorder called stiff person syndrome, and it is clear that these covers were meant to show the world that her spirit is still fighting. Harper's Bazaar US has two covers by Ethan James Green, and what a treat they are. Anok looks incredible, she is modeling all the way through her fingers, and I think the makeup is a smart way to reference Josephine Baker, but make it feel current. This is my favorite cover of the month. When it comes to Christy Turlington's cover, to be honest, I hate this faux fur coat, but I need to take a moment to appreciate the very deliberate statement Ethan James Green is making in his work. When I zoom in close on her face, you can see the fine lines and wrinkles, and somehow we all survived. So many photographers are removing every line on the face as if it is a blemish or something that needs to be corrected, but Christy is just as beautiful like this. Youth does not equate beauty, and retouchers really need to get over that archaic way of thinking. The other images in the editorial are great, a lot to sink your teeth into, and I really hope to see Ethan working more with Harper's Bazaar in the future. Harper's Bazaar France also has two covers by Karim Sadli, and unlike the photo of Christy Turlington for the US edition, here we have much more aggressive retouching on Naomi's face. Naomi herself is a big fan of over-editing her face on Instagram, so I don't think she's upset about this cover, and the positives about the photo are that she does have a very tender expression, a side we don't often see from her. The contrast, lighting, relaxed pose, and styling are all very pleasant, not incredible, but still very nice. The second cover by Karim is much more energetic and visually interesting. I like that some of the clothes have a bit of a motion blur, as if a pile of laundry had just been dumped on her head, and the bright colors liven up the stark background. V Magazine has Anne Hathaway serving mother and father in two drastically different characters, both great and allowing the Academy Award-winning actress to do what she does best, throw herself into a role. I prefer the cover of her in the Margiela by John Galliano look. It is so much more fantastical than the gender-swapped cover, but that one is also masterfully executed. Good job, Chris Colls. I'm sure you are very happy with how these covers turned out. Vogue Portugal has 3 covers for their Mother Nature issue, and I think they could have cut one of them. Between these 2 covers featuring flowers on the face, I prefer this beauty shot. The dusting of pollen, the way that the flower petals are placed with a bit of chaos, all makes this a more interesting image to me. Maria Klauman's cover is pretty, but it does have a hint of Instagram model shoot to it. The cover with Maggie and her daughter is heavenly, the light shining on her head is creating a beautiful halo effect, and we aren't sacrificing glamour even in this tender family portrait. This is not your typical Vogue cover, and that's exactly what makes it so interesting. For Vogue China, we are witnessing the Tilda Swintification of Cate Blanchett. I'm often praising photographer Szilveszter Mako on this channel. I think he does amazing work, but I must admit, this is not my favorite cover from him. I appreciate his high concept, art-forward photography. Here we have a doll box inspired cover, but especially after a year of Barbie, 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 I wouldn't have gone in this direction. If you are going to mute the tones so much, then just make the cover black and white. I find this image much more interesting for a cover, although I would have gone without the black dots on the cheeks. Vogue España's cover of Lisa Rinna's Daughter by Brett Lloyd has to be the worst photography I've seen from him. I identify deeply with the disgruntled chihuahua on the cover, desperately trying to escape the clutches of this monstrosity. If you miss her mother so much on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, here's a link to her diaper commercial, watch that on a loop and get her daughter out of my face. Vogue Germany, Vogue Taiwan, and June's issue of Vogue Japan were all shot at the same time by Nikolai von Bismarck. Where have I seen this image before? Oh yes, here it is. I really dislike this idea of shooting a bunch of different covers at once. No concept here besides it being Kate Moss, and the over-retouching is expected but disappointing. The focus is blurry, the colors are hazy. I don't understand why you would want to photograph someone with such an extensive history of work and then do something bland like this. At the end of the day, it's just about being able to use her name on the cover, not what she actually looks like. Vogue Brazil has 2 covers of Paloma Elsesser for May, and I think this full body shot is one of her best covers to date. I have no idea what this aluminum foil covered bed is about, but the trench coat is great and opened exactly the right amount. She looks long and strong. Her face is stunning as usual. Her portrait is nice as well. The lucite bracelets and faux fur look great. I just wish there was more asymmetry with her hands to make the photo more interesting. I always encourage my models to do something different with each of their arms and legs in a photo. I think it would have really helped elevate this cover. Vogue Mexico has 2 covers of Camila Mendez for their nostalgia issue. I prefer the cover in the grass. It is more simple and eye-catching, but the flower in her mouth was a mistake. If she was chewing on the stem or something cuter like that, okay. But like this, it didn't need to be there. With the other cover, I don't love that we have the back of both of her hands showing. It is a underutilization of a body part that has the ability to speak, second only to the face. Interview Magazine's cover of Rihanna by Nadia Lee Cohen feels dated, and I'm not only referring to the fact that it's a replica of an old Pew Boy cover. Rihanna was not raised in the Catholic Church, so the nunsploitation theme feels empty and like it's trying too hard to be provocative. For someone like Madonna, who has explored the impact of her Catholic upbringing in her work, I can understand that constant desire to reference it, but not here. Photographer Nadia Lee Cohen has a habit of recreating vintage magazine covers for her own work, like she did with the Skims campaign, and if that's your style, just copying the work of others, you should retire or move to LA. I have linked my video on inspiration versus imitation if you are interested in hearing me explore that subject. M Magazine's cover of Amber Valletta by Grace Albom explicitly states it is an homage to Richard Avedon's legendary series In the American West, and I appreciate that distinction. As an Avedon aficionado, I immediately got the reference, and I imagine this Western shoot is a result of Beyoncé apparently inventing country music with her new album. I think the casting is really smart. They took moments to modernize the series, and this guy is a dead ringer for John Weirley. Do yourself a favor and check out Avedon's entire In the American West series. There are so many photos that left me floored. Reedition magazine has Madonna on the cover, head looking like a light bulb. I'm sad Bill Skarsgård has been replaced in the role of Pennywise, but what makes this photo even worse is having Alberto Guerra in frame with her, with human skin right next to the over-retouched skin on Madonna. Vogue Arabia's covers of Salma Hayek show how quickly color can change the feeling of an image. These 2 covers have a softer, a bit less saturated skin tone, and I think she looks very elegant. But in this third cover, the light is harsher, the oranges are more saturated. It doesn't look bad, but it definitely looks less expensive. Speaking of less expensive, there is an editorial in this issue featuring a Kate Moss knockoff. More on that in a later video. For Another Man magazine, we have this cover of Mamor Majang by Luis Alberto Rodriguez, and it is all so dark I can barely even see enough to critique it. I think it is helpful to look at an image at different scales, so especially when the cover is so small, all you can see is the highlight on his cheek and eyelid, not enough to make out a face. The Mike Feist cover by Jack Pearson looks so void of inspiration and artistry, it could easily be mistaken for e-commerce. The editorial continues this barrage of blandness and it reminds me of the lookbook images from when a model goes on stay in Tokyo and they have to get through 50 looks in a few hours. The first time I saw Mike was in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, and I saw his star quality immediately. Here it has been neutered. This is my pick for the worst cover of the month. Josh O'Connor's Esquire cover is much nicer than that of his Challenger's co-star, even with the empty studio. His clothes are more interesting, the pose is better and creating interesting shapes, and his lifted foot is adding movement in a seated photo. Knitwear once again saves the day by adding texture and volume to an otherwise very generic cover. Of the 3 GQ Portugal covers, which would you guess was photographed by a Disney child star? Not a surprise to me that this dated cover was shot by Colls and the other 2 covers by actual photographers. My favorite is this cover of twins Miguel and Jose Campillejo, which they could have achieved without the gimmick of twins, but whatever. I like the yin and yang and that it is not a perfect inversion. On the right we have a ribbon rather than a tie. He's looking up at his brother where the other is looking down. Just subtle differences that make the image more interesting. I think they overdid it with the artificial noise added to the image, but it is a well-executed black and white cover. The third cover of Blas Polidori plays with volume and pattern in an interesting way, but the main thing I would change is his elbow that is leaning against that pole. His torso is too upright. The gesture would feel more authentic if we could feel a greater weight of gravity, the subject on the verge of slipping being pulled down. This type of outdoor, strong flash photography is never going to be my favorite, but it is not the worst cover. GQ Korea's covers of Valentin Humbroik are safe, clean, basic, but not terrible, with my favorite being this one with the yellow background that has the most expressive face of the bunch. When sunglasses are on a cover like this, it just feels like an advertisement, not a fashion cover, and if I had to bet money, I would guess that they just made this background blue in Photoshop, given how the transition between his hair and the blue looks so unnatural, and that there is no blue cast on his skin. In the 20 covers of Arena On Plus magazine, we have quite a few nice covers to enjoy. Emma Darcy by Fausto Elizalde has a captured moment feeling. Even if it is all staged, it still has that intimacy of a more documentary style of photography. There's also a great range of shapes, textures, patterns, definitely a strong black and white image. Jamie Dornan looks tan and hunky in this Sean and Sang cover, although I prefer these images of him spitting. They are more fun and visually striking. This cover by Oliver Hadley Perch isn't a fashion image, but beautiful nonetheless. My favorites are the Alistair McClellan covers, which feel like I'm getting the subject's entire biography just by the look in their eyes. This is what I love most about McClellan's work and why I hate when he shoots dumb rich girls from LA. They have no story to tell. For my least favorite covers, we have the David Sims images. Here are 2 of them with boys putting their shoulders up to their ears. This one of Jordan Wolfson is a pile of nothingness, and this mirror image is very London, and that's all I need to say about that. These are the 2 covers that I could have loved with a few changes. Simon by Arnaud Lagenie has very interesting styling and shape, but it all being so dark makes it difficult to get hooked into. Of course, it's really challenging to edit when your starting image is so dark, but I prefer something bolder like this. The cover of Seth and Miles is overexposed, and I actually think it looks much better in black and white. Like this, the tapestry provides texture, but doesn't detract from the subjects like it does in the original cover. Leon Dama as Homer Simpson in the bushes is very amateur test shoot, not a fan of this. I talked about the first few Men About Town covers in my April video, but of the remaining covers, this one of Mani Ajayi by Austin Fisher stands out as easily the best of the bunch. The White Dove is definitely overdone, but this cover is crisp and precise. The rounded sleeves of the McQueen coat are a nice play with proportion, and I love how Mani's face is lit, especially that there is a tiny bit of a catchlight in his eye on the shadowed side of his face. And that is where today's review is going to end. But for more about the fashion industry, check out the links below. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the covers this month, and be sure to subscribe to find out who comes out on top next month in the battle of the covers.